Hello, sleepy soul. Welcome to Midnight Talks. I'm your storyteller tonight, your host in the dark. If you enjoy the tales I whisper, don't forget to subscribe so I don't get lost in this endless crowd. February 24th, 2020, Winter Park, Florida, 1:30 p.m. The 911 dispatcher's phone rang on what seemed like an ordinary Monday afternoon. On the other end of the line was a woman named Sarah Boone, 42 years old, and she was hysterical. "My boyfriend is dead," she sobbed into the phone. "I think he's in the suitcase. Oh my God, I don't know what happened." The dispatcher tried to calm her down. "Ma'am, slow down. Where is your boyfriend now?" He's he's still in the suitcase. Upstairs. I just woke up and found him." The dispatcher paused, confused. "I'm sorry, did you say he's in a suitcase?" "Yes. We were playing hide and seek last night. We were drinking. I thought he got out, but he's still in there, and he's not moving." Within minutes, Orange County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the modest two-story home on France Lane. What they found upstairs would become one of the most bizarre and disturbing crime scenes they'd ever encountered. In the bedroom, zipped inside a blue suitcase, was the body of 42-year-old Jorge Torres Jr. His body was contorted, folded in an impossible position. His fingers were bloody from clawing at the zipper. His face was pressed against the fabric, frozen in what appeared to be a final gasp for air. But here's what made this case go from tragic accident to cold-blooded murder. Sarah Boone's cell phone. On that phone, investigators found two videos. Videos that Sarah herself had recorded. Videos that would reveal the horrifying truth about what really happened that night. And those videos, they showed Jorge Torres screaming, begging, pleading for his life, while Sarah Boone laughed. The relationship that led to murder. To understand how someone could zip another human being into a suitcase and leave them to die, we need to understand the relationship between Sarah Boone and Jorge Torres. This wasn't a sudden act of violence. This was the culmination of years of toxicity, abuse, and escalating rage. They had been together on and off for about 4 years. Friends and neighbors described their relationship with one word: volatile. But that's a polite way of saying it was toxic, explosive, and dangerous. The kind of relationship where you hear screaming through the walls at 2 a.m. The kind where police cars become regular visitors to the driveway. Both Sarah and Jorge struggled with alcohol, not the casual glass of wine with dinner kind of drinking. We're talking about bottles of wine consumed daily, blackout drunk arguments, and mornings where neither could remember what they'd said or done the night before. Their fights were legendary in the neighborhood. One neighbor recalled hearing Sarah screaming at Jorge, calling him every name imaginable. Another remembered seeing Jorge storm out of the house at midnight, only to return hours later. The police had been called to their home multiple times for domestic disturbances. But here's what made this relationship particularly dangerous. The violence went both ways. Sometimes Sarah was the aggressor, throwing objects, scratching, hitting. Sometimes it was Jorge, pushing, grabbing, intimidating. Most times it was mutual combat fueled by bottles of wine and years of resentment that had fermented into pure hatred. Sarah had been married before. She had a son from a previous relationship. By all accounts, she was intelligent, articulate, and when sober, could be charming and engaging. She worked in real estate and had dreams of building a successful career. But alcohol transformed her into someone else entirely. Someone cruel, someone vindictive, someone capable of unspeakable acts. Jorge Torres was described by his family as a gentle soul who had his own demons. He worked in construction when he could find work, which wasn't always consistent. He loved his family deeply, especially his mother and siblings. He had a warm smile and a kind heart, but he was trapped in a relationship that was slowly destroying him, piece by piece, day by day. In the months leading up to his death, the violence had escalated dramatically. Sarah had been arrested for domestic battery against Jorge in 2018. When police arrived, Jorge had visible injuries, scratches down his face, bruises on his arms, marks around his neck. The officers took photos. They documented everything. But like many victims of domestic violence, Jorge didn't press charges. He stayed. He always stayed. Why? Because that's what abuse does. It makes you believe you deserve it. It makes you think you can fix the person hurting you. It makes you hope that tomorrow will be different, even when every yesterday has been the same nightmare. Their friends noticed something dark growing between them. The playful banter had turned cruel. Sarah would mock Jorge in front of others, belittling his job, his appearance, his manhood. Jorge would withdraw, becoming quieter, more isolated. The arguments had become more frequent, more vicious, more physical. There was a sense that something terrible was building, like a storm gathering strength on the horizon. On February 23, 2020, that storm finally broke. The night everything changed. It was a Sunday, a lazy, ordinary Sunday. Sarah and Jorge had been drinking throughout the day. Wine, mostly, bottle after bottle. By evening, they were both heavily intoxicated. According to Sarah's initial statement, they decided to play a game, hide and seek. But this wasn't innocent fun. This wasn't a couple being playful and romantic. This was the kind of game that people play when alcohol has eroded their judgment, when years of anger are bubbling just beneath the surface, when someone wants to humiliate someone else under the guise of playfulness. Sarah suggested Jorge hide in the suitcase, a blue suitcase they kept in the bedroom. Jorge, drunk and probably wanting to avoid another fight, agreed. Maybe he thought it would make her happy. Maybe he thought it would diffuse the tension. Maybe he was too drunk to realize the danger. He climbed inside, folded his 5'9" frame into that small space, knees to chest, head down, cramped and uncomfortable, and Sarah zipped it shut. What happened next would be captured on video, and those videos would reveal a level of cruelty that shocked even seasoned homicide detectives who had seen the worst of humanity. The videos that revealed a monster. Warning: this section contains extremely disturbing content. When detectives examined Sarah Boone's phone, they found two videos recorded at 11:12 p.m. on February 23, 2020. These weren't accidental recordings. These weren't drunk mistakes. These were deliberate documentation of murder. The first video is 1 minute and 21 seconds long. 1 minute and 21 seconds that would haunt everyone who watched it. It shows a blue suitcase in the middle of a room. The suitcase is moving, violently, rocking back and forth. Someone is inside, struggling desperately to get out. Then you hear Jorge's voice, muffled, desperate, terrified, the voice of a man who realizes he's in serious danger. "Sarah! Sarah, I can't breathe!" The camera shakes slightly. You can hear Sarah breathing, heavy breaths. And then she laughs. Not a nervous laugh. Not an "oh no, let me help you" laugh. Not an "are you okay, baby" laugh. A mocking, cruel, sadistic laugh. The laugh of someone enjoying another person's suffering. Jorge screams again, his voice more panicked now. Sarah! I can't breathe, baby. Sarah! You can hear the terror in his voice, the confusion, the desperation. He's calling out to the woman he loves, the woman he trusts, begging her to help him, and she's laughing. Sarah's voice, cold and taunting. That's what I feel like when you cheat on me. Let that sink in. Jorge is suffocating, and Sarah is using this moment to punish him, to make him pay for whatever she believes he's done wrong. This isn't a game anymore. This is revenge. The suitcase rocks back and forth violently as Jorge tries desperately to get out. His fingers appear through a small gap in the zipper, clawing, reaching, grasping for freedom that won't come. You can see his fingers, bloody, desperate, fighting for life. Sarah, please! His voice is weaker now. He's running out of air. Sarah laughs again. That's on you. Oh, that's what you do when you choke me. She's comparing his suffocation to their past fights. She's justifying his death in real time. She's watching him die and telling herself he deserves it. Jorge's voice is becoming weaker, more desperate. I can't breathe, Sarah. Sarah. Sarah mockingly, with pure venom in her voice. Yeah, that's what you told me, for everything you've done to me. Expletive you, stupid. The video ends, but Sarah wasn't done. She recorded a second video. The second video was recorded shortly after. It's 36 seconds long, 36 more seconds of documented torture. The suitcase has been turned on its side now. Jorge is still inside, still struggling, but his movements are weaker. He's dying. His oxygen is running out. His body is shutting down. Sarah. His voice is barely audible now. A whisper, a final plea. Sarah's voice dripping with sarcasm. That's my name. Don't wear it out. She's mocking him. As he's dying, as he's gasping for his last breaths, she's making jokes, more struggling, more desperate attempts to breathe. You can hear Jorge trying to get air, trying to survive, trying to live. And then Sarah says something chilling, something that proves this was intentional murder. For everything you've done to me, expletive, you. The video ends. She went to sleep. After recording these videos, after watching Jorge suffocate, after mocking his pleas for help, Sarah Boone went downstairs. She didn't unzip the suitcase. She didn't call 911. She didn't perform CPR. She poured herself another glass of wine. She sat on the couch. And according to her own statement, she went to sleep. She left Jorge Torres zipped inside that suitcase. She left him to suffocate. She left him to die alone, in the dark, in agony, calling out her name. Think about Jorge's final moments, trapped in complete darkness, unable to move, unable to breathe, knowing the woman he loved was just downstairs, and she wasn't coming to help, knowing he was going to die, knowing there was nothing he could do. How long did he survive? How long did he struggle? How long did he call out her name before his voice gave out? How long did he claw at that zipper before his strength faded? How long did he suffer before his brain shut down from lack of oxygen? When she woke up the next afternoon, more than 12 hours later, she claimed she forgot Jorge was in the suitcase. She went upstairs, saw the suitcase, unzipped it, and found Jorge's body. Cold, stiff, dead. That's when she called 911. But those videos told a different story. Those videos showed premeditation. They showed malice. They showed a woman who watched her boyfriend suffocate and did nothing. Those videos showed murder. The interrogation room. The interrogation room. Detective Chelsea Botten sat across from Sarah Boone in the interrogation room at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. The room was small, sterile, with fluorescent lights that made everything look harsh and unforgiving. Sarah was still in the clothes she'd been wearing when police arrived. A tank top and shorts. Her blonde hair was messy. Her eyes were red from crying. But Detective Botten had seen the videos, and she knew this wasn't going to be a simple accident investigation. This was murder, and the woman sitting across from her was a killer. "Sarah, I need you to walk me through what happened last night," Detective Botten said calmly, her voice measured and professional. Sarah took a shaky breath, wiping tears from her eyes. "We were drinking, playing around. Jorge wanted to play hide and seek. He thought it would be funny to hide in the suitcase." "And you zipped him in?" "Yeah, but it was just a game. I thought he could get out. I went downstairs, had some more wine, and I guess I fell asleep on the couch." "What time did you fall asleep?" "I don't know. Maybe midnight? I was really drunk. I don't remember much." Detective Botten nodded, taking notes, letting Sarah talk. This was standard interrogation technique. Let the suspect tell their story first, then confront them with the evidence. "And when did you find him?" "This afternoon around 1 o'clock. I woke up and went upstairs and saw the suitcase and, oh God." Sarah started crying again, her body shaking with sobs. Detective Botten let the moment hang in the air. Then quietly she dropped the bomb. "Sarah, we found videos on your phone." Sarah's face went pale. The color drained from her cheeks. Her eyes widened. "What videos?" "Videos of Jorge in the suitcase. Videos of him begging you to let him out. Videos of you laughing." The room went silent. You could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights, the distant sound of phones ringing in other offices. Sarah stared at the detective, her mouth slightly open, her mind racing. I don't remember that." "You don't remember recording videos of your boyfriend suffocating?" "I was drunk. I don't remember. I would never. I loved Jorge." This would become Sarah's defense throughout the interrogation and later at trial. She was too drunk to remember. She didn't mean to hurt him. It was an accident. She blacked out. She didn't know what she was doing. But Detective Botten wasn't buying it. She'd been doing this job for years. She knew the difference between genuine remorse and performance, and Sarah Boone was performing. "Sarah, in the videos, Jorge is telling you he can't breathe. He's begging you to let him out. And you're telling him, that's what you get, and that's what I feel like when you cheat on me. Does that sound like a game?" Sarah put her head in her hands, her fingers gripping her hair. "I don't know. I don't remember. We were both drunk. We were always fighting. I didn't mean for this to happen. I swear I didn't mean for this to happen." "But you recorded it. You recorded him dying. Why would you do that if you didn't mean for it to happen?" "I don't know why I did that. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking straight." The interrogation went on for hours. Detective Botten was patient, methodical, relentless. She asked the same questions different ways. She pointed out inconsistencies in Sarah's story. She confronted her with evidence. And slowly, Sarah's story began to change. First, she said Jorge got in the suitcase voluntarily. Then she said she helped him get in. Then she said she couldn't remember who suggested it. Then she said maybe it was her idea, but it was just supposed to be funny. She claimed she thought Jorge could get out on his own. But the video showed the suitcase was fully zipped, and Jorge's desperate attempts to escape were futile. She claims she passed out immediately and forgot about him, but the video showed her conscious, coherent, and cruel. She claims she loved Jorge and would never hurt him, but the videos showed her mocking him as he died. Detective Botten leaned forward, her eyes locked on Sarah's. "Sarah, let me ask you something. In that video, Jorge says, 'I can't breathe.' What did you say in response?" Sarah was silent, staring at the table. "Let me refresh your memory. You said, 'That's what I feel like when you cheat on me.' You said, 'That's on you.' You laughed at him. Do you remember that?" "No," Sarah whispered. "You don't remember. Or you don't want to remember." "I don't remember. I was drunk." "Sarah, your phone records show you were active until 2 a.m., texting, browsing Facebook, watching YouTube videos. Does that sound like someone who passed out?" Sarah's eyes widened. She hadn't expected this. She thought her drunk excuse would work, but the evidence was destroying her story piece by piece. I, I don't remember that either." "You don't remember a lot of things, do you? How convenient." "I was drunk." Sarah's voice was rising now, defensive, angry. "Being drunk doesn't make you forget everything, Sarah. Being drunk lowers your inhibitions. It makes you do things you might not do sober, but it doesn't create cruelty. It reveals it. So when you laughed at Jorge begging for his life, that cruelty was already inside you. The alcohol just let it out." Sarah broke down sobbing, her head on the table. "I didn't mean to kill him. I didn't mean to. I loved him." Finally, Detective Boughton asked the question that would define the entire case. "Sarah, did you intentionally leave Jorge in that suitcase to die?" Sarah looked up, tears streaming down her face, mascara running, her voice breaking. "No, I loved him. I would never, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened." But the evidence told a different story, and Detective Boughton knew it. The videos, the phone records, the timeline, everything pointed to one conclusion. Sarah Boone had murdered Jorge Torres. The autopsy, how Jorge died. The medical examiner's report painted a horrifying picture of Jorge Torres's final hours. Dr. Sean Parcells, a forensic pathologist, performed the autopsy, and his findings were devastating. Cause of death, asphyxiation, due to positional compression and oxygen deprivation while confined in a suitcase. But it wasn't quick. It wasn't peaceful. Jorge Torres suffered. He suffered terribly. The autopsy revealed multiple injuries that told the story of his desperate fight for survival. External injuries, deep scratches and abrasions on his hands and fingers from trying to claw his way out. Broken fingernails from scraping against the metal zipper. Bruising around his neck and shoulders from being compressed in the small space. Contusions on his knees and elbows from trying to push against the suitcase walls. Petechial hemorrhaging in his eyes. Tiny burst blood vessels consistent with suffocation and oxygen deprivation. Internal findings. Hemorrhaging in the soft tissues of the neck. Congestion in the lungs indicating he was struggling to breathe for an extended period. A blood alcohol level of 0.15, nearly twice the legal limit, which meant his judgment was impaired, but he was conscious and aware of what was happening. The medical examiner estimated that Jorge could have survived for anywhere from 30 minutes to several hours inside that suitcase, depending on how much oxygen was available and how much he struggled. Think about that. 30 minutes to several hours. 30 minutes to several hours of knowing you're going to die. 30 minutes to several hours of screaming for help that never comes. 30 minutes to several hours of clawing at fabric and metal that won't give way. 30 minutes to several hours of breathing in your own carbon dioxide until your lungs burn and your vision fades and your brain starts shutting down. 30 minutes to several hours of calling out the name of the woman you love, begging her to save you, and hearing nothing but silence. Dr. Parcells explained in his report, the victim would have experienced extreme panic and terror. As oxygen levels decreased and carbon dioxide levels increased, he would have felt his chest tightening, his heart racing, his vision blurring. He would have been fully conscious for most of the ordeal, aware that he was dying, unable to escape. The psychological torture would have been as severe as the physical suffering. This wasn't a quick death. This wasn't painless. This was torture. 9 attorneys and 4 years of delays. If you thought the crime was bizarre, the legal proceedings were absolutely surreal. Sarah Boone went through 9 different attorneys before her case finally went to trial. 9. That's almost unheard of in the legal system. Why? Because Sarah Boone was, by all accounts, impossible to work with. Her first attorney, a public defender assigned to her case, withdrew after just 3 months. Sarah had sent him dozens of rambling, accusatory letters claiming he wasn't taking her case seriously, that he was conspiring with the prosecution, that he didn't believe her story. Her second attorney, a private lawyer she hired with money from her family, withdrew after Sarah demanded he pursue conspiracy theories about the police planting evidence and tampering with the videos. He told the judge that Sarah refused to listen to legal advice and insisted on strategies that would destroy her defense. Her third, fourth, and fifth attorneys all withdrew, citing irreconcilable differences. Legal speak for, this client is impossible and I can't work with her. Sarah represented herself for a brief period, filing handwritten motions that were often incoherent and legally nonsensical. She claimed she was a victim of domestic violence and that Jorge's death was self-defense. Despite the videos showing Jorge trapped and helpless, unable to fight back, unable to defend himself, she wrote letters to the judge claiming her attorneys were part of a conspiracy against her. She accused prosecutors of misconduct. She demanded new evidence be examined. She filed motion after motion, delaying her trial for years. In one particularly bizarre filing, Sarah claimed that Jorge had actually zipped himself into the suitcase and that she had tried to help him but couldn't get the zipper open. This directly contradicted her earlier statements and the video evidence. Her sixth attorney lasted 3 months before withdrawing, citing Sarah's refusal to cooperate and her insistence on testifying despite legal advice against it. Her seventh attorney made it 6 months before throwing in the towel. By the time her eighth attorney withdrew, Judge Michael Kranick had had enough. In a stern warning from the bench, he told Sarah that she was running out of options. The court had been more than patient, but justice delayed is justice denied, for both the defendant and the victim's family. Ms. Boone, Judge Kranick said, his voice firm, you have gone through 8 attorneys. You have delayed this trial for nearly 4 years. Finally, in 2023, Sarah was assigned her 9th attorney, a seasoned public defender named James Owens, and Judge Kranick made it crystal clear. This was her last attorney. The trial would proceed whether she liked it or not. No more delays. No more excuses. But Sarah's behavior didn't stop. During pretrial hearings, she would interrupt proceedings, argue with her own attorney in open court, and make bizarre statements to the judge. In one hearing, she claimed Jorge had been abusive and that she was the real victim. In another, she claimed the videos were taken out of context and didn't show the full story. In yet another, she claimed she couldn't remember anything from that night and shouldn't be held responsible. Her story kept changing. Her demeanor kept shifting. One moment she was tearful and remorseful, dabbing her eyes with tissues. The next she was angry and defiant, glaring at prosecutors. Psychologists who evaluated her noted signs of narcissistic personality disorder and possible antisocial traits. She showed little genuine empathy for Jorge's death. Instead, she seemed primarily concerned with how she was being portrayed in the media and whether people believed her version of events. And the media was paying attention. The case had gone viral on social media. True crime YouTubers dissected every court appearance. The videos of Jorge's final moments had been leaked online, sparking outrage and horror across the internet. Sarah Boone became a symbol of domestic violence, of cruelty, of how alcohol and toxic relationships can lead to tragedy. Her name became synonymous with evil. Jorge Torres' family waited patiently for justice. His mother, Maria Torres, gave tearful interviews, describing her son as a kind man who deserved better. His siblings created a memorial page, sharing photos of Jorge smiling, happy, alive, reminding the world that he wasn't just a victim in a suitcase. He was a son, a brother, a friend. He was a human being who died in one of the most horrific ways imaginable. And finally, in October 2024, more than 4 years after Jorge's death, Sarah Boone's trial began. The trial prosecution presents the evidence. The courtroom was packed. Media from across the country had descended on Orlando to cover the trial. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters filled the gallery. Jorge's family sat in the front row, clutching photos of their loved one, wearing buttons with his face on them that said, "Justice for Jorge." Sarah Boone sat at the defense table, wearing a conservative blouse and glasses, her hair neatly styled, looking nothing like the woman in those videos. Her attorney, James Owens, sat beside her, knowing he had his work cut out for him. The prosecution was led by Assistant State Attorney William J., a veteran prosecutor known for his methodical approach and powerful closing arguments. His strategy was simple: let the evidence speak for itself. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Jay began in his opening statement, his voice calm but commanding. This case is about a woman who watched her boyfriend suffocate to death and did nothing. Worse than nothing, she mocked him. She laughed at him. She recorded his final moments for posterity. And then she went downstairs, drank more wine, and went to sleep while Jorge Torres died alone in the dark. Jay walked the jury through the timeline of that night. The drinking, the game, the videos, the hours Sarah spent awake while Jorge died upstairs. He presented phone records, autopsy reports, crime scene photos. Then came the moment everyone had been dreading. The videos. The prosecution played the videos. In the courtroom, in front of Jorge's family, in front of the jury, in front of the world. The room was silent except for Jorge's voice. "Sarah, I can't breathe," and Sarah's laughter. Several jurors looked visibly disturbed. One woman covered her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. A male juror shook his head in disbelief. Jorge's mother left the courtroom in tears, unable to watch her son's final moments. The medical examiner testified about Jorge's injuries, about the slow, agonizing process of asphyxiation, about the terror he must have felt. He would have been conscious for most of it, Dr. Parcells explained to the jury. He would have known he was dying. He would have experienced panic, terror, and physical pain as his oxygen depleted. This was not a quick or painless death. Crime scene investigators testified about the evidence found at the scene: the suitcase, the blood. The phone records showing Sarah was awake and active for hours after recording the videos. Detective Boone testified about Sarah's changing stories, her lack of genuine remorse, her attempts to blame Jorge for his own death. In all my years as a detective, Boone said, I have never seen someone show so little empathy for a person they claim to love. But the prosecution's most powerful moment came when they called Jorge's brother, Miguel Torres, to the stand. Tell us about Jorge, the prosecutor said gently. Miguel, fighting back tears, his voice shaking, described a man who loved his family, who worked hard, who struggled with demons but was trying to get better. Jorge wasn't perfect, Miguel said, wiping his eyes. He had his problems. He drank too much. He stayed in a bad relationship too long. But he was a good man. He was kind. He was loving. He would give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. Miguel turned to look at the jury, his eyes pleading. He didn't deserve this. Nobody deserves to die like that. Alone. Scared. Begging for help that never came. Calling out the name of the woman he loved, and she just laughed. His voice broke. She laughed at my brother while he died. The courtroom was silent. Several jurors were crying. The prosecution rested their case after 3 days. They had presented overwhelming evidence of second-degree murder, an intentional act that showed depraved indifference to human life. Now it was the defense's turn, and James Owens had an impossible task. How do you defend someone when the evidence is so damning? The defense, an impossible task. James Owens stood before the jury, and you could see the weight of his impossible task on his shoulders. He knew the evidence was bad. He knew the videos were devastating. But he had a job to do. This is a tragedy, he began, his voice sincere. A horrible, senseless tragedy. But it's not murder. It's a terrible accident that happened between two people who were in a toxic, mutually abusive relationship and who were both extremely intoxicated. The defense strategy was clear. Paint Sarah as a victim of domestic violence who made a terrible mistake while drunk. Owens called witnesses who testified about Jorge's past violence. A neighbor who heard Jorge yelling at Sarah, threatening her. A friend who saw bruises on Sarah's arms and a black eye she claimed Jorge gave her. Medical records from 2018 showing Sarah had been treated for injuries she said Jorge inflicted: a sprained wrist, bruised ribs, scratches on her neck. Sarah Boone was in an abusive relationship, Owens argued passionately. She was a victim of domestic violence. She lived in fear, and on that night, after drinking heavily, after years of abuse, she made a terrible decision. But she didn't intend to kill Jorge Torres. She thought he could get out. She thought it was a game. She was too drunk to understand the danger. But the prosecution objected immediately. Your Honor, the defendant's history with the victim doesn't change what happened that night. The videos show clear intent. This isn't self-defense. Jorge was trapped and helpless. The judge sustained the objection. Owens then called a psychologist, Dr. Rebecca Martinez, who testified about the effects of alcohol on judgment and memory. At the blood alcohol levels both Sarah and Jorge had that night, their decision-making would have been severely impaired, Dr. Martinez explained. Sarah may genuinely not remember her actions or her intent. Alcohol-induced blackouts are real. People can appear functional but have no memory of their behavior. But on cross-examination, Prosecutor Jay destroyed this argument. Doctor, does alcohol make someone cruel? Does it make someone laugh at another person's suffering? Well, alcohol can lower inhibitions. That's not what I asked. Does alcohol create cruelty, or does it simply reveal what's already there? The psychologist hesitated. It can reveal underlying traits, yes. So when Sarah Boone laughed at Jorge Torres begging for his life, that cruelty was already inside her. The alcohol just let it out. Isn't that correct? That's one interpretation, yes. And when she recorded those videos, when she mocked him, when she went downstairs and left him to die, that wasn't the alcohol. That was Sarah Boone, correct? Objection, Owens shouted. Sustained. Rephrase, counselor. But the damage was done. The jury had heard it. The defense was crumbling. Owens knew it. Sarah knew it. Everyone in that courtroom knew it. Then Owens made a risky decision. He put Sarah Boone on the stand. Sarah took the oath, sat down, and immediately began crying. She looked at the jury with pleading eyes. Ms. Boone, Owens said gently, tell the jury what happened that night. Sarah took a shaky breath, her voice trembling. Jorge and I had been drinking. We were having fun, actually. We weren't fighting. He suggested we play hide and seek. He thought it would be funny to hide in the suitcase. He was laughing about it. And you helped him get in? Yes, he was laughing. We were both laughing. I zipped it up and I thought he could get out whenever he wanted. I didn't know he couldn't breathe. What happened next? I went downstairs. I had some more wine. I was really drunk. And I passed out on the couch. I don't remember anything else until I woke up the next day. Do you remember recording the videos? Sarah shook her head vigorously, tears streaming down her face. No, I don't remember that at all. When they showed me those videos, I couldn't believe it was me. I couldn't believe I said those things. I loved Jorge. I would never hurt him intentionally. Do you regret what happened? Every single day, Sarah sobbed. Every single day, I wish I could go back and change it. I wish I had let him out. I wish I had called 911. I wish he was still alive. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It was a performance, and some jurors seemed moved by it. But then came the cross-examination, and Prosecutor William J. was ready. Jay approached Sarah slowly, deliberately, his eyes locked on hers. Ms. Boone, you say you don't remember recording those videos. No, I don't. But you remember Jorge getting in the suitcase? Yes. You remember zipping him in? Yes. You remember going downstairs? Yes. You remember drinking more wine? Yes. So you remember everything except the part where you committed murder? Objection! Owens shouted, jumping to his feet. Sustained. Rephrase, counselor. Jay nodded, not missing a beat. Ms. Boone, your phone records show you were active until 2 a.m. texting friends, browsing Facebook, watching YouTube videos. Does that sound like someone who passed out? Sarah stammered, her eyes darting. I don't remember that. You don't remember a lot of things, do you? Very convenient. I was drunk. Ms. Boone, in the video, Jorge says I can't breathe. What did you say in response? Sarah was silent, staring at her hands. Let me refresh your memory. You said, That's what I feel like when you cheat on me. Do you remember that? No. You said, that's on you. Do you remember that? No. You laughed multiple times. Do you remember that? Sarah broke down sobbing, her whole body shaking. I don't remember. I don't remember any of it. Jay let the moment hang in the air. Then quietly, with devastating effect, Jorge Torres remembers. He remembered every second of suffocating to death while you laughed. He remembered begging you for help. He remembered calling out your name. He remembered dying alone in the dark while the woman he loved did nothing. Objection! Withdrawn. No further questions. The defense rested, and everyone in that courtroom knew Sarah Boone was going to be convicted. The verdict. The jury deliberated for less than 90 minutes. 90 minutes to decide the fate of Sarah Boone. 90 minutes to deliver justice for Jorge Torres. When they returned to the courtroom, the tension was palpable. Sarah Boone's face was pale, her hands trembling. Jorge's family held hands, praying for justice. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Cranick asked. We have, Your Honor. What say you? The jury foreman, a middle-aged man in a suit, stood. He looked directly at Sarah Boone. In the case of the state of Florida versus Sarah Boone, on the charge of second-degree murder, we find the defendant guilty. Jorge's family erupted in tears and embraces. His mother collapsed into her daughter's arms, sobbing with relief. His brother raised his eyes to the ceiling, whispering, "Thank you, God." Sarah Boone showed no emotion. She simply stared straight ahead, as if she couldn't process what had just happened, as if she still believed she would get away with it. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Under Florida law, second-degree murder carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. The sentencing, a family's pain. The sentencing hearing was emotional, raw, and devastating. This was the moment Jorge's family had been waiting for. The chance to finally speak directly to Sarah Boone and tell her what she had taken from them. Judge Cranick's courtroom was packed once again. Jorge's family filled the front rows. Sarah sat at the defense table, her face blank, emotionless. We will now hear victim impact statements, Judge Cranick announced. Jorge's mother, Maria Torres, went first. She walked slowly to the podium, her hands shaking as she held her prepared statement. She looked directly at Sarah. My son was not perfect, Maria began, her voice trembling. He had his struggles. He drank too much. He made mistakes. But he was a good man. He was my son. He was kind. He was loving. He called me every Sunday. He helped his siblings when they needed money. He made me laugh. Her voice broke. And he died in the most horrible way I can imagine. Sarah Boone, you took my son from me. You watched him suffocate. You laughed while he begged for his life. You recorded his death like it was entertainment. And then you went to sleep. She turned to look directly at Sarah, tears streaming down her face. You are a monster. You are evil. And I hope you spend every single day for the rest of your life thinking about what you did. I hope you hear Jorge's voice in your head, begging you to help him. I hope you never know peace. Jorge's brother Miguel spoke next. Jorge called out your name. Sarah, he said. Sarah, I can't breathe. He trusted you. Even in that moment, even when he was dying, he thought you would help him. But you didn't. You let him die. And I will never, ever forgive you for that. One by one, Jorge's family members spoke. His sister described how Jorge would never meet her children. His cousin talked about their childhood together. His best friends shared memories of Jorge's kindness and humor. Each statement was a dagger, each word a reminder of the life Sarah had taken. Then it was Sarah's turn to speak. She stood, her attorney beside her, and addressed the court. Her voice was shaking, but whether from genuine emotion or fear of her sentence, no one could tell. "I want to say that I'm sorry," she began. "I never meant for any of this to happen. Jorge and I loved each other. We had our problems, but I never wanted him to die. I think about that night every day. I wish I could go back and change it. I wish I had let him out. I wish I had called 911. I wish I had done anything differently." She paused, crying, "I know his family hates me. I understand that. But I want them to know that I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. I love Jorge, and I have to live with what I did for the rest of my life." Some people in the courtroom scoffed. Jorge's brother shook his head in disgust. Prosecutor William J. stood for the state's sentencing recommendation. "Your Honor, this was not an accident. This was not a mistake. This was a deliberate, cruel act by a woman who wanted to punish her boyfriend and went too far. The videos show clear intent. The evidence shows she had multiple opportunities to save Jorge Torres' life and chose not to. She deserves the maximum sentence allowed by law." Judge Cranick took a deep breath. He had presided over many cases in his long career, but this one clearly affected him. "Ms. Boone," he began, his voice grave, "I have presided over many cases in my career. I have seen terrible things. I have seen violence, cruelty, depravity. But this case is particularly disturbing. The videos of Jorge Torres' final moments will haunt me for the rest of my life, and they should haunt you." He continued, "You had every opportunity to stop this. You could have unzipped that suitcase at any moment. You could have called 911. You could have performed CPR, but you didn't. You went downstairs, drank more wine, browsed social media, and went to sleep. You left a human being to suffocate to death. The court finds that this crime was committed with extreme cruelty and a depraved indifference to human life. The videos show not just negligence, but active malice. You mocked Jorge Torres as he died. You laughed at his suffering. You recorded his final moments. Therefore, I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Sarah Boone collapsed in her chair, her head in her hands. Her attorney put a hand on her shoulder. Jorge's family wept with relief. Justice finally had been served. Where is she now? Sarah Boone is currently serving her life sentence at Lowell Correctional Institution in Ocala, Florida. She will be eligible for parole in 2045 when she is 67 years old. Reports from inside the prison say she keeps to herself, has few friends, and spends most of her time in her cell. Other inmates know who she is and what she did. The videos went viral. Everyone has seen them. She will spend the next 25 years behind bars with nothing but her memories and her guilt. The lessons we must learn. But this case is about more than just one woman's cruelty. It's about the dark side of relationships, the dangers of alcohol, and the devastating consequences of domestic violence. The domestic violence reality. Both Sarah and Jorge were victims and perpetrators of domestic violence. Their relationship was toxic, fueled by alcohol and resentment. Friends and family saw the warning signs but didn't know how to intervene. Domestic violence experts who studied this case noted several red flags that were present in Sarah and Jorge's relationship. Escalating violence over time. mutual combat situations where both parties were violent, heavy alcohol abuse by both parties, isolation from friends and family, a pattern of breaking up and getting back together repeatedly, public humiliations and verbal abuse, threats and intimidation. Jorge's death was the ultimate escalation, but it didn't have to end this way. If someone had intervened earlier, if Jorge had left the relationship, if Sarah had gotten help for her alcohol abuse and anger issues, Jorge might still be alive. The alcohol factor. Both Sarah and Jorge had blood alcohol levels well above the legal limit that night. Alcohol didn't cause Sarah to murder Jorge, but it lowered her inhibitions enough to reveal her cruelty and act on her darkest impulses. Substance abuse counselors point to this case as an example of how alcohol can turn toxic relationships deadly. When judgment is impaired and emotions are heightened, people do things they might never do sober. But being drunk is not an excuse. It's an explanation, not a justification. The game that wasn't. Sarah claimed they were playing hide and seek, but experts in abusive relationships recognize this for what it was: a power play. Abusers often disguise their abuse as jokes or games. They humiliate their partners and then claim it was all in fun. They push boundaries and test how much control they have. Zipping Jorge in that suitcase wasn't a game. It was Sarah asserting dominance, punishing Jorge for perceived wrongs, and seeing how far she could go. Why did she record it? Psychologists have several theories about why Sarah recorded those videos. Trophy taking. Some criminals record their crimes as a way to relive the power they felt. Evidence for later. Sarah may have intended to show Jorge the videos later, to humiliate him or use them as leverage in future arguments. Impaired judgment. She was drunk and not thinking clearly about the consequences. Sadistic pleasure. She enjoyed his suffering and wanted to capture it. Whatever her reason, those videos became the smoking gun that convicted her. Jorge's legacy. Jorge Torres' family has worked tirelessly to ensure he's remembered as more than just a victim. They've shared photos and stories of Jorge's life, his love of music, his close relationship with his siblings, his dreams for the future, his kindness to others. They've also become advocates for domestic violence awareness, speaking at events and encouraging people in toxic relationships to seek help before it's too late. If Jorge's death can save even one life, his mother Maria said in an interview, then maybe there's some meaning in this tragedy. If one person sees the warning signs in their own relationship and gets out before it's too late, then Jorge didn't die for nothing. The broader impact. The Sarah Boone case went viral on social media, sparking important conversations about how we treat domestic violence cases when both parties are abusive, the role of alcohol in violent crimes, the importance of intervention when we see toxic relationships around us, the psychology of cruelty and how normal people can do monstrous things, the need for better resources for people trapped in abusive relationships. If you're in a toxic relationship, if you or someone you know is in a relationship like Sarah and Jorge's, please get help. National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-7997-233, SAMSA National Helpline, Substance Abuse, 1-800-662-4357, Crisis Text Line, text HOME to 7417417. You don't have to stay. You don't deserve abuse. There is help available. Final thoughts. On February 23, 2020, Sarah Boone made a choice. She chose cruelty over compassion. She chose revenge over mercy. She chose to watch another human being suffer and die. Jorge Torres spent his final hours trapped in darkness, calling out the name of the woman he loved, begging for help that never came. His last word was her name, Sarah. And Sarah Boone will spend the rest of her life knowing that she could have saved him with a simple act, unzipping a suitcase, but chose not to. This is the story of the suitcase murder, a story of toxic love, alcohol-fueled rage, and a death so cruel it shocked the nation. Jorge Torres was 42 years old when he died. He deserved better. He deserved to be loved, not tortured. He deserved to live. And Sarah Boone, she deserves exactly what she got: life in prison with nothing but her memories and her guilt. Rest in peace, Jorge Torres. You are not forgotten.